How was that? Actually, if you didn't text me and ask me how how the exhibition was, yeah, I probably wouldn't be so motivated to see it. Well, I have to say that I don't see a lot of exhibitions like music related, although since I am a researcher of pop music, so I also thought, oh, maybe I should go see it. Well, actually, my students, some of them have seen it, and they all seem to enjoy it. So I felt, whoa, this is a, I don't want to say it's a crowd pleaser, but it seemed...
It kind of is.
I do have to say that I enjoy it too, just as an ordinary visitor.
Like surface level.
The surface level. But I haven't really thought too much about what a music exhibition is supposed to be.
I kind of wanted to talk about like what makes an exhibition, like a music exhibition. Is it just it being about music, or... I don't know, does there have to be like a oral experience? In this one, in Music Island Stories, I think there was effort in making it more of an audio experience, which I personally really enjoyed, because it's not something I've experienced before, but just having the personal audio guide and it sort of detecting where you are and it playing the music that's related to that particular part of the exhibition, that to me felt like it's not the usual exhibition experience.
Yeah, I was impressed. I guess maybe a lot of people felt impressed, but also that experience is so similar to the streaming.
That's true.
It's like you move and it kind of follows you. Although when it got to the big room,
With the costumes?
With the costumes,
yeah.
Right. The streaming got a little too much. Because that room has so much stuff and so, like, very different kinds of exhibitions.
Yes, that's true.
So I kind of took off the audio guide for a while just because I didn't want to be so distracted.
Yeah, there's so many stories that you're trying to digest with the texts from that part. Yeah, no, I also agree. And I think it takes you a while to go around it.
Right.
If you really do. I did, I think, do the same thing. Like halfway through, I'm like, okay, I've heard it.
Did you want to talk about any particular rooms? Did you have a favorite exhibition room?
Well, I have to preface this by saying, like, I'm a foreigner coming in. So I'm from the Philippines and I'm studying in Taiwan. I work in music and I only recently got into going to exhibitions. I tell a lot of people that Music Island Stories is one of my favorite exhibitions. I really did enjoy it when I first went there, and I've gone back maybe like 5 times. But I think it's just a really cool way to showcase music beyond what we're used to, you know, like the shows, all sorts of shows, like concerts, festivals. Do I have a favorite room? I really enjoyed the young people's rooms. I think it's called like Young People's Sanctuary. It's very, very simple. It's just projections and then they're just playing music in the headphones. But like to me, that felt it hit home, not because I was listening to the same music, but I feel like it's really in your youth that most of your music taste forms. And like they have all these, how would your room look like with the music that you listen to? Maybe stereotypical, but there's that emotional factor to it. Oh, my room looked like that when I was like 13, 14, and this was the music I was listening to, and it's like, it's so nostalgic. I don't know how that felt for you.
Yeah, I really like that room too. It's called Young People's Spiritual Sanctuary. Even though it didn't have like the artifacts,
anything, right?
Yeah,
it's
right.
Just
it was just it was a space with projection that changes. But the message, I totally agree with you. It the strength of that room was that it somehow evokes experience, like memories of youth, or maybe not even youth. I don't know. Maybe at any life phase, everybody needs a room. And then you can...
True. That you can just express yourself in. Even if I wasn't really listening to the same type of music, it reminded me of when I discovered music, when I started falling in love with music. And that's a pretty powerful experience, actually. Just remembering the moment you started loving the thing that you love.
When was that for you?
It was around the same time. It was uni for me. I went into uni taking a business degree because I didn't know what I wanted to do in life. And then I got into watching independent band shows around uni, around campus. I befriended the bands that were forming within my year also. And I listened to a lot of music, like what my friends were playing, what they were recommending. Because before that, I only knew pop, essentially what was on the radio. But in uni, I got more exposed to like all these types of music that my friends were listening to. And I did do a lot of just like staying in the dorm room at that time, and just listening and figuring out, oh, I like this one. Oh, this one maybe not so much, something like that. And it's been an ongoing process since then, but really that was where it started for me. I started falling in love with music. I started producing my own shows.
Wow, you produced your own show?
In the Philippines, yes. Like small gigs at the start, and then eventually concerts when I got affiliated with some companies. Beyond the affiliations, I also do a lot of like coffee shop open mics because I like just exchanging stories and very chill performances where it's raw and vulnerable. Those are more the type that I lean into.
Wow, okay. I'm glad to kind of get to know a little bit about your university, uni life. For me, I guess when I started to explore music, maybe it was in high school. I went to the U.S. to study for my high school. I lived with my aunt and uncle in Maryland, near Washington, D.C. It was the 90s. I left Taiwan in 1989. I always remember that was the June 4th, Tiananmen Square summer that I left Taiwan. Actually, when I was in Taiwan, I didn't listen to that much Mandarin pop music. It was just a few years after the post-martial law. So things were starting to get interesting, like the soundscape. But it was only after I started living in the U.S. that I started to listen to Mandarin pop.
Interesting. I thought you were going to say like U.S. pop.
I listened to U.S. pop before I went to the U.S.
Oh, okay.
So,
that makes sense.
So I think that's actually one significant personal meanings of popular music. It's highly mobile. It accompanied me for when I was kind of exploring my place in the world. Yeah, so getting back to that room, I think a lot of people could relate to that room and somehow remember what their room was like.
There were a lot of parts of the exhibition that I felt were very historical, like the Taipei Circle or the cinema even. Like they were very distinctly Taiwanese, I would say. And so as a foreigner, I enjoyed it, surface level viewing it. And also the folk song era, actually. Like I only knew about that because I read your book. But before that, but like beyond, like as a tourist, if I were a tourist, I wouldn't really like have that connection with these parts of the exhibition, I feel like. But I wanted to get hear your thoughts about
the historical
side of it. Yes.
I would say they are the most talked about or the most mainstream historical information about the development of Taiwan popular music, including the cinema, the Taipei Circle, as you said, and also folk song. The young people who were part of the folk song, Sing Your Song movement, they're still active, and they hold annual concerts.
Wow.
And there are a lot of books about Mingge, the folk song era. Some of the most respected radio personalities, like Tao Xiaoqing, Ma Shifang, Ma Shifang's mother, yeah.
Ma Shifang
is one of the curators, right? But even for someone who seems to have more familiarity with this folk song era, I kind of enjoyed the artifacts. Speaking of a historical side, one of the reviews said they were a little puzzled by the room where they showcase like the birth of a record. For me personally, I found that room interesting. Maybe it's because I got into the hardware and the software of music production in these couple of years.
And to me too. I mean, I like the promotion and marketing side of it because that's what I do for a living. I mean, to me it was more straightforward. Like, they show the typical process on the wall of how a record is created. And then they just showed, like, songwriting notes, right? Also.
Right.
That to me was pretty special, but I wonder what they were saying about it.
They showcased the actual A&R proposals. Like how they plan to package the concept behind certain artists.
So this is coming from the company, not the artist.
Right.
Oh, interesting. It does happen.
It does happen. It did happen. It was so streamlined, especially for like rock records or competitive music companies. I mean, it's hard to imagine people doing that now because so much of the emphasis is on authenticity. Well, maybe you want to comment.
My face. I feel like
yeah.
No. I don't know. I feel like in Taiwanese music, especially on the indie side, definitely, I have gotten to know Taiwanese bands recently that have very strong identities, like Mongdong or Dinosaur Skin. They know what their sound is, what their look is on stage, but there are artists who sometimes come to a music company. They can sing, they have talent, or they can write, but they don't know how to package themselves. Once in a while, the company, people in the music business like me, we help out with how an artist can package themselves, what market should they reach out to, how should they dress, which songs should come out first so that the narrative is complete, something like that. It's not necessarily dictating how the artist should look like. I know it still happens in pop, in mainstream. If you're really working with artists, it's more of like we let them tell us their stories and then we help them figure out how best to tell that to people. So yeah, on the indie side of things, that's kind of how it worked. That's still a fun thing to do, I think, for the artist, as long as they're still comfortable and like they're part of the storytelling process. Because I couldn't really understand what was written in most of the creating a record part. I don't know which side of the A&R was really showcased on that part, or like how free the artists were during that time.
It's interesting that you were saying these days the indie artists somehow have internalized how they want to be
perceived.
Right,
yes.
right. Whereas you could have idol type
yes,
coming out of a company, but somehow they're not well positioned. The next example is not from this exhibition, although I did see Panay Kusui. Recently, she published a book, and then she went on several radio interviews as well. She was talking about how in the 90s, she had a contract for several years with one of the big record companies. That was the era when you kind of have to fit into a certain type of femininity as a solo female singer. And it just didn't work for her. And then she started writing her own songs and branching out. Back in that room where they talked about the creating a record, I don't know if you remember, they were playing some videos on the monitor. They are kind of like the big A&R producers. Right? But they were also saying that these days with the social media and the indie music scene developing so rapidly, this concept or this production packaging doesn't...
getting obsolete.
Well, I think it's still necessary, as you said, but it doesn't necessarily come from the music companies or record companies.
That's true. Yeah, I think that has changed a lot in the last few years because of the internet, because it's easy, and also the technology of just making your music at home. I think right now, which I really like, right now, for like artists come to music business people knowing what they want or what they need from us or from producers, instead of like asking to be dictated or for someone to like let them know what to do because they know what to do. That's a really good development. I like that, for example, if an artist wants to work with a music marketer, I can only work with them where I can add value. They have their own thing going on with their social media, but let's say I may have the media connections that they need, or I may be able to recommend them to showcases abroad. And that also makes the job interesting because it's different per artist. It's different based on what they need. It's different based on what they want, because a lot of artists sometimes don't even want to go on social media. Very hard to work with those artists, but I respect it. They just also have to temper their expectations if that's the case. It makes the business side of it also creative, which is a fun thing. Which I think is how producers or music business people should see it as well. It is, to make money for the artist and the industry, but at the end of the day, it's a creative endeavor for all of us, not just the musicians, because that's what makes this industry an interesting one compared to selling soap.
Right. I totally agree with you that the business side is the creative side as well. Yeah. It has its own creative agendas and explorations to do.
Ideally, right? Did you have any favorite artifacts from the big room?
The big room?
Yes.
I was impressed by the costumes.
The costumes.
Yeah, the stage performance clothing, like SHE, as well as
that's really cool.
Gao Lingfeng from the 70s or 80s.
I recognized the shirt from Crowd Lou's album, the Sorry I'm Late shirt. I thought that was really cute because when I listened to the music and saw the album art, I was like, and the music video, I was like, okay, that's a really cute shirt. I actually want one. And then I saw it in the exhibition. Really cute. And I think there was a Ubai shark head.
Right. It was, I almost missed that. It was kind of in a corner, right? That display window.
Yeah. I don't know if that was meant to highlight it or what, because it is like, it's the last thing you see before going to the next thing. And to me, that felt like it was to highlight it because I really stopped and looked at it. But some people might miss it. They're just going to the next one.
Did you think the exhibition made a good effort to include people? Like their strategies of inclusivity was something I wanted to ask you about, especially as an international visitor.
The audio guide was a really cool feature. Like that's the best feature for me. They'd include several languages, and it's great that they're narrated by artists.
Mm-hmm. By OZ.
Yeah, by OZ for the English one. Ajo and Baba also, like the next floor. For my friends who are not from Taiwan, it's really cool for us to get to know, to discover these artists. And then when we would go around the exhibition, we would discover songs that, I actually really like this one. We can't Shazam it, but we can search for the titles. In terms of like language, that was very helpful and inclusive in a way, because not a lot of exhibitions would actually account for that. And I like that with the headphones, you sort of have your individual journey. So you're not bothering other people. Like, you can go into a room and start it at your own pace. So it's very individual. It's not very dependent on other people within the same room, which I think can be helpful also. I did think about how overwhelming it can get. For people who can be anxious in those scenarios, especially in the big room, like you said, or in the live area, where there's so many colors, there's so many lights, and there's so many things you have to read, and there's music. So that can be overwhelming. I thought about how to respond to that, and I was like, maybe, one should just take off the headphones to like minimize the overwhelm. Or maybe they could have a version of the audio guide that's not as filled as the current one.
I agree with you that they make this visit very individualizing with the personal audio guide. And And then when I went to the live music room, I saw Simple Life Artifacts, the music festival, and I also went there.
Last year?
No, actually, this was when I was in my 30s. Okay. So I saw some of that, it's still part of my personal memories. I actually try not to look at this exhibition from the viewpoint of a scholar. So the personalizing strategy of this exhibition worked very effectively for people who has some experience with the music, pop music in Taiwan.
Were you able to do the AR concert experience?
No, I think I missed it, and it makes me want to go back.
And it's 4 walls and the floor. And I think what they did is they have footages from previous concerts that they repurposed for this particular experience. The very first one I watched was a J Lin concert, and it was pretty straightforward. You see 3 different, behind me was one, but 3 different sides of the same picture, I believe. It almost makes you feel like you're actually part of the crowd, but you're chill, you're sitting down on the floor, which is nice. I remember one that I really enjoyed was Tizzy Back. I think the artists themselves, they're very digital, they're very cartoony even, and that was really fun. We stayed there for almost 20 minutes, running through the whole thing and then back. But I really enjoyed it. And afterwards, I was with another Filipina and the Paraguayan friend. And after that, we went to dinner. We were just playing Tizzy Back songs because we really had fun. And they have an app. And I have a lot of thoughts on how they can improve the app. But
yeah, what are some of the ideas?
No, I feel like they can incorporate the app to more parts of the exhibition, essentially. I feel very strongly about playlists. I think more playlists should be integrated, or I think I saw one in KK Box that incorporated songs from this exhibition. There's so many ways you can go about it. You can go by mood, you can go by section of the exhibition, like the train ride part. I would listen to that while I was riding the train. Like what Kaohsiung is doing, you can have people add their favorite Taiwanese pop song to it. Also makes it more interactive.
Getting back to the TMC exhibition, I thought it was very successful in promoting that personalizing angle. Also a point that is commonly criticized by pop music scholars.
Because it's too personal?
Because then you can't talk about power. Whether it's the industry, the standardizing, but then again, there are different kinds of power. We're not just talking about capitalism. We're also talking about empowerment.
I guess they focused on empowering the self. But I was thinking of it's personal, but it's also a community experience. Like the songs that they picked for the exhibition, I assume were songs that were important to the Taiwanese community. Let's say you experience it personally, but at the same time, the fact that this is the song you're hearing on the radio means something. Means that this is the song that is being listened to by a lot of people in your community, and it's what's playing through whatever the community is experiencing during that time.
I would say overall the exhibition does project certain kind of imagined community. For example, how Taiwanese society consists of Hakka, the Taiwanese, as well as the indigenous people and the new immigrants. I think that kind of narrative is felt.
Did you feel like it was inclusive in that sense? Was it more Mandopop centric?
It was definitely more Mandopop centric. We're almost at the end of the conversation. Although there's one thing I want to ask you about. I know you also listen to K-pop.
Yes.
Do you see this kind of a contrast in Taiwan and South Korea? I would say hip-hop is the main foundation of K-pop, whereas in Taiwan, hip-hop is the indies.
I don't know if it's comparable because K-pop is K-pop. K-pop is its whole like mostly manufactured industry. Korea also has their own. They have K-hip hop, they have K-R&B. There are all these artists that I felt are very similar to Taiwanese indie artists, actually, like indie Korean artists who are not part of the K-pop world that are also building their communities, very similar to Taiwan. With Korea, it's very interesting to also explore smaller, but not too small, music communities of R&B and hip-hop. I've been very interested in not hip-hop, but more the city pop movement recently from Japan, but like in Taiwan, in Korea, in Southeast Asia. Everyone somehow is doing this type of music and people are listening to it. I work with various city pop, K-R&B artists, and when we look at their numbers on Spotify, top listeners are always Taiwan, Philippines, which is very interesting to me because I'm like, Taiwanese people are listening to a lot of these actually. And that's a very interesting movement because with this, for some reason, we're not dividing by country that much anymore. We're more of like a region deciding that this is the type of music that sort of like my personal observation is it's defining this generation right now. City pop, R&B, hip hop is what the kids like, and it's really fun. And you can see it with the festivals too. Like the people headlining the festivals and the people collaborating with each other also. Right. That's the growth that I want to see, I think, in Asian music communities. More of us as Asians and less as nationalistic, I would assume. Just more collaborations and more listening to each other and more cultural exchanges or connections, I feel like. That's what's going to happen in the next few years, and that's very exciting.
And you're probably going to be a player, a central player in this.
I hope. That's the dream.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Rhea.
That was really fun.